Hello everyone and welcome back to day 8 of our F125 Hotlap and Setup series. Yes, we return this weekend to the toughest track on the Formula 1 calendar. We're back around the Monaco Grand Prix circuit. The shortest circuit on the F1 calendar, the tightest circuit, the toughest circuit, it's all of the above. It is brutal for beginners to the game, and especially, of course, I'm sorry to say, for the controller players, it's not a pad-friendly place inside F125. Of course, as always, I will be going through kind of explaining what you want to be looking for around this circuit. Then I'll be showing you a setup, and then last but not least, of course, we've got a hot lap ready to go. Of course, always with these setups, but I keep getting asked on every video, yes, this is designed for race pace, it is designed to help with your Grand Prix inside F125, so it's not a time trial specific setup. In fact, at Monaco is probably the biggest difference between a time trial setup and a race setup, simply because, like I said, in time trial you can bang off the walls and do all this, that and the other. I've tried to keep the hot lap pretty clean and tidy. I think I do nudge the wall in a couple of places, but yeah, this place more than any other is just about staying out of trouble, avoiding front wing damage or ripping off a wheel. But yeah, without further ado then, get yourself subscribed if you're new. We're trying to hit 15k if these setups are useful for you, and yeah, let's head then into our track guide. Well, here we are then through Anthony Nogues to kickstart a lap here from the Monaco Grand Prix. Like I said, you should get a lap time done here in just over 70 seconds, but they will be an absolute whirlwind. You don't get a second to relax around this circuit. You're going to be all the way up in 7th gear as you make your way in towards turn 1. I like to keep the car fairly kind of 2/3 of it over the yellow pit lane entry line, but then what I'm looking for is to try and line the car up with the outside wall ready for turn 1. You want to brake just before you head under the gantry. Like I said, try and keep the car in as straight a line as you possibly can. You're going to go from 7th gear all the way down to 3rd. In race trim, you might want 2nd gear whilst the car is heavy with fuel there. Attack the curbing through the first corner. Allow the car to run right up towards the wall on the exit. The curbing on the outside will help you out, but certainly don't rely on it. And as we make our way then up the hill, of course, you want to be just keeping the line of least resistance as you make your way up there. Go, you know, kind of dancing between the walls. You allow the car to get right close to the right and then the left-hand side, and then back over to the right as you make your way up towards the top of the hill. You want to be braking just as you go over this kind of crossing, as you can see. Inside F125, though, because of all the bumps, you actually want to go for quite a late apex. So 6th gear on the way in, down 1, 2, and then last but not least, a 3rd gear as you make your way into the next corner there. Get as close to the wall as you possibly can before it straightens out through the second part, and then through the next turn again, you want to be trying to get as close to the curbing there. Leave the car in 3rd gear, short shift as you get over the bump, and then be very, very careful as you make your way down the hill. Avoid the worst of the bump on the left-hand side there. I don't find it's anywhere near as bad in the game as you find in real life, but then from 5th gear, you want to be going all the way down into 2nd. This yellow gate, that is my marker point for braking here. You want to brake slightly before it in race trim, but like I said, from 5th gear, you want to go all the way down to 2nd. Try to get the car as close to the apex as you can on the inside, but be very, very careful. Of course, the rear of a Formula 1 car, a little bit wider than the front, so if you're nudging the wall on the front, you're certainly going to be hitting it on the rear there. But try and get the inside wheel. You see this kind of white dashed line, obviously where the cycle lane is normally. Try and make sure that the inside wheel, of course, is inside of that. And then as we try and put the power down on the exit, leave it in 2nd gear, allow the car to come over to the left, and then, of course, the straight line run in towards the slowest corner on the Formula 1 calendar. Just as you go past that wall, you want to be getting on the brakes. Again, you want to try and get as much steering lock into the car as you possibly can. Of course, you're actually going to be full opposite lock. Oh, full lock, sorry, I should say. Some of you guys might notice, of course, if I'm doing like career mode and stuff, I actually take my hands out of the wheel and just use the palm of this hand to push the wheel over. And then, obviously, as you straighten out the car on the exit, I slowly bring my hand back in as well, off of the corner there. Short shift back into 2nd gear, ready for lower mirror bow, then try and get the front inside wheel over the curbing. Try and take as much curb as you possibly can there, and then allow the car to run nice and wide as you get ready for Portier. Again, you don't need to go down a gear or anything like that, but I'm getting on the brakes just as you go past these two little orange end kind of boards of the wall. Again, don't do an Ayrton Senna, but try and get as close to the apex curve as you possibly can on the inside. I would avoid the curb both on entry and exit, though, through there, because they are notoriously difficult as well. You'll finally get a little bit of a chance for a breather, though, as we head through the tunnel, of course, completely flat out in a Monday Formula 1 car there. Keep the car over, though, on the right-hand side through the exit of the tunnel. Don't allow it to go too far over that white line. You want to go past the 150-meter board, and then you want to be on the anchors at the 100-meter board there on the outside. You're going to be going all the way from 7th gear down into 2nd, but be very, very careful on the inside in towards the chicane here. Don't hit the inside wall, otherwise it's a one-way ticket to DNF. And then just try to be very, very careful there. You can get the car fully wedged over this yellow curbing through the exit of the corner. This works because when the front 2 wheels are off the circuit, the rear 2 wheels are still on the circuit, and then vice versa as you try and bring the car through. It might bottom out ever so slightly, but try and avoid running too wide there to give yourself the straightest run on the exit of the corner. Right up as close as you possibly can to that wall. Short shift under 3rd gear, and then you're going to be all the way up into 5th as you make your way down in towards to back. Looking just after the 50-meter board. In qualifying trim, you don't need to downshift. In race pace, I would opt to go for 4th gear just to make sure you don't understeer wide. Flick the car through, though. Obviously, the circuit does kind of open up a little bit on the exit, so you want to get right up towards this outside wall, and then you can see that black box there down in towards the next corner. Turning in before you get there because you're aiming for that inside curbing, and again, the line of least resistance as you navigate your way through the swimming pool chicane. Completely flat out again, and then allow the car to straighten up through the exit of the corner. You want to be braking just before that marshal on the right-hand side there from 6th gear, sorry, I should say, all the way down into 3rd in race trim, but again, you can leave it in 4th in qualifying. Get the car as close to the wall on the inside as you can. Flick the car, then try to avoid taking too much of the yellow sausage curb, and then foot to the floor again. Short shift up into 4th just to avoid too much wheel spin, otherwise you will find the rear of the car will try and rotate around. Again, looking for a straight line approach in towards the Rascas. I like to brake just as you get towards the end of the UPS signs. You can see the transition from the white banner board to the yellow as you get in towards the Pirelli ones, but from 4th or 5th gear all the way down then in towards 2nd. This is where the AI are really, really weak inside F125, but again, try to get the car as close to the inside wall as you can, but be careful not to hit it. 2nd gear, a quick blast of throttle as you prepare yourself for the final corner, and then just as you go past kind of that little cutout in the wall again, you want to be just nudging the brake, try to go for a late apex through Anthony Nogue, otherwise you could hit the inside wall, and then just as you go through, short shift up to 3rd, open up the DRS, and that is going to be a lap of the Monaco Grand Prix. Like I said, it's the shortest track on the F1 calendar, but there is so much to be focusing on. You do not get a chance to breathe around this circuit as well. So it is really, really important that you feel quick and confident here, because other drivers are going to bin it. You're going to gain a lot of places in any league race you do, just from staying out of trouble and also avoiding corner cutting. It seems ridiculous to say, but turn 1 and the chicanes at the end of the lap, you can very easily pick up a penalty as well there. Let's head though back to the pit lane and we'll talk through the setup. Well, taking a look then at the leaderboard, as you can see, I'm about a second clear of my good friend Cam there. You see 3 seconds clear of Gary, so clearly we're going to whoop him in co-op inside F125. 50-49 for the aerodynamics. Some people like to run 50-50 here. I prefer to have slightly more front aero than rear. It gives you a tiny bit of extra speed. It also allows you to rotate the front end in a bit more sharply, because if I find if you're using equal front and rear angle, it can actually make the car a little bit understeery, which is a little bit weird. It's been the same in the last couple of games, but it is just kind of a quirk of setting up a car inside the F1 series. 90 for the diff on throttle, 20 for the diff off throttle. Again, fairly standard to what we've been running most of this season so far. You want to be able to allow the car to kind of slide a little bit on throttle, but certainly you want to allow the car not to lock the rears up under braking, and obviously reducing or unlocking that off throttle differential well will make a whole world of difference. Pretty much minimum on the front and, sorry, the camber and the toe angles. Again, I just like to run one click away from the absolute minimum, just to help look after the tyres a little bit. 39.22 on the suspension, very firm suspension here. This circuit is quite bumpy. You don't want the car to kind of be wallowing around and everything like that, so I like to keep it quite firm. However, though, on the other hand, the front anti-roll bar, very soft down at 3, before a 17 rear anti-roll bar. Ride height, I'm running quite low. I would recommend for a lot of people, if you're still struggling with the balance of the car, upping this to about 25.53, but 22.49 worked for me for getting a lap in the car. 54.100 on the brake bias and pressure. Of course, that's fairly standard. I would probably run it at 97.55 for race trim, though, just to try and keep the car a little bit more stable. But I've been able to make it work on 54.100. Pretty much minimum tyre pressures across all 4 corners. Of course, we all know this circuit isn't the worst for tyre wear in the world. It is just if you're nudging the barriers, that will really increase the wear. Otherwise, managing tyre temperature is the other important thing that you've got to be focused on around this circuit as well. There are no shortcuts to learning Monaco. There are no shortcuts to getting better at this place. You've just got to grind out the laps. I'm sorry, I cannot provide you with any more than that. I've done thousands upon thousands of laps around this circuit on various F1 games, and even now, I still suck at it. So, there you go. That is the best advice I can possibly give inside F1 25. Thank you all so much for watching, though. If you are enjoying this series, please do make sure you hit that sub button. And we'll be back tomorrow ready for the Spanish Grand Prix, of course. We've caught IRL Formula 1 already. But yeah, hopefully these setups are helping you out. And we'll be back very soon, ready in Barcelona.